Welcome to Shul.com. We are learning the halachot of Shabbat from Rabbi Yonatan Nakson, and we are on chapter 2, Hadlakat Nerot Shabbat, lighting the Shabbat candles. So let's take a look. Both men and women have an obligation to have light in their home on Shabbat, and there are three reasons for this mitzvah. First one, why do we need to have a light? Onik Shabbat, so you can enjoy the Shabbat. You know, when you have light in the room, it's much more comfortable, it's more enjoyable, instead of staying in the dark. And the poskim add that the candles should be placed near where you're going to eat, either on the table, in the room where you're going to eat. I generally don't put it on the table only for safety issues because we do oil, and if I would put two oil glass containers on the table, the kids moving, passing food would be concerned, so I put it right next to the table, but within the room of the table. The second one is the kavod Shabbat, the honoring of the actual day of Shabbat. And we do this by adding an extra candle. What does that mean? Generally, you would light one candle. On Shabbat, you do everything two in order to honor the Shabbat. Let's take a look at some of the notes that he puts on the bottom over here. He says in Talmud Bavli in Pesachim 53b, explains, and also in Rashi Shabbat 25b, that the honor of Shabbat is that one will be able to see while he is eating, because generally they would eat at night and they didn't have electricity and light. So other Rishonim, such as the Rosh in Shabbat 16-5 and the Tur in subsection 610, state that by merely having an extra candle that is lit in the home, one is showing an honor for Shabbat, even though one does not necessarily need the extra light. If you had one light, one candle, it would be sufficient. By putting two, you're really honoring the Shabbat. And the Orchot Shabbat in volume 4, page 85 goes at length with the subjects, which adds that even according to the Rambam, it's possible this mitzvah is also included in the kavod of Shabbat, since one is showing that he's preparing Shabbat by lighting a candle before Shabbat, since one may not light a candle on Shabbat itself. Okay, very nice. Number 3. What's the third one? Shalom Bayit. Why? Because to have peace in one's home. What is that for? Because by having light, it increases a person's ability to have a conversation. When you go into a place and it's dark, it's not comfortable. You go into a place with a lot of light, you want to sit down, you talk, you can learn Torah. It's more comfortable. Okay, next topic too. Even if one has a candle already lit from before Shabbat, one should put out that candle and then relight it, the same one, in honor of Shabbat, if that was the specific case. Let's take a look. The reward for the mitzvah of lighting candles on Shabbat. The mitzvah of Hadlakat Nerot. The mitzvah of Hadlakat Nerot is a great mitzvah. So, if you live alone, we're going to get to it. And one who is especially careful in observing this mitzvah merits to have children who are Torah scholars or who will marry Torah scholars. That's if you are careful with the mitzvah of Hadlakat Nerot. And he brings down a bunch of the sources, starting from the Talmud Bavli, Masechet Shabbat, page 23, Amud Bet. It's a famous Gemara. The time of lighting the Shabbat candles is an especially auspicious time for one's prayers to be answered. Therefore, if a woman after she finished lighting, she should put her hands out and pray for her husband's health, well-being, her children's success in the Torah, the fear of heaven, for parnasah, for good health, success. Afterwards, one should also pray that the Geula and the redemption should come. Right after you light the candle, all the berachot are done, then you can go and pray for that. Next thing, after lighting the Shabbat candles, it's a sigula for childbearing to recite the haftarah of the first day of Rosh Hashanah that discusses the story of Hannah, which is found in Shemuel Aleph, chapter 1, pasuk 2 till 10. So chapter 1 and 2, starting at pasuk 10. It is praiseworthy custom to give tzedakah before lighting the Shabbat candles. You should always have like coins, right? You can have like a bunch of pennies and a little tzedakah box, and just to put little coins in before Shabbat. It's not the amount that you're giving in tzedakah, it's just the fact that you are giving charity, which is important. So you should do that also at the same time. So he brings a couple of really nice, interesting things. Next things. Let's say someone cannot afford Shabbat candles. Even though the Gemara says purchasing Shabbat candles takes precedence over purchasing wine, one who cannot afford to buy Shabbat candles and wine for Kiddush should buy the Kiddush wine instead of the candles. Why? Since nowadays one may rely on the electric lights that he has at home. Likewise, if one cannot afford candles for the mitzvah of Hanukkah lights and Shabbat candles, one should buy Hanukkah candles first. Okay, so we'll repeat that last one. If some cannot afford candles for the mitzvah of Hanukkah and Shabbat candles, you can only buy one set of candles or oil. He should buy the Hanukkah candles first, and that would be sufficient. Hadlakat Nerot in the Bet HaKnesset. Should you light candles in shul? There is no obligation for a synagogue to light candles in honor of Shabbat. Therefore, even congregations who have a custom to light candles in honor of Shabbat in the synagogue may not recite a beracha when they light the candles. I know that in the S&P synagogue in London, they do that. The Spanish and Portuguese shul, they don't say beracha, but they actually light chandeliers with candles in it. So it's kind of interesting. You can check that up with some photos of the place online. The number of candles a woman should light. How many should she light? There's a lot of interesting opinions on this. I've seen a few myself. According to the letter of the law, one is obligated to light one light in order to fulfill the mitzvah of lighting Shabbat candles. One. One is good and you are done. However, it is customary to light two lights. Why? One corresponds to the mitzvah of Zachor and Shamor, to remember and to keep. Shamor, in order to protect. So he brings down the halakha b'rua that one who wants to light more than two candles should preferably light the main two candles a little higher than the others, and then light the rest of the candles in a smaller candle holder. So the two should be the ikar, the main ones, and then if you want to light extras, you can do. There's a few opinions. We're going to talk about the opinions now. Some people have the custom to light 7 candles. Okay, so opinion. Let's go. We have 1 candle. Then you could do 2 for Zachor and Shamor. Then you could do 7. Some even light 10 candles. That's the 4th opinion. And some people light an extra candle for each child that is born in addition to the 2 candles of Zachor and Shamor. So the 2 minimum plus 1 for every person in the household. So if there's 10 people in the house, there would be 12 lights. And that's 5 different opinions of how to light. Again, let's repeat. 1 is the standard. You have to do 1. 2, Zachor and Shamor, and also on Shabbat you do things extra. So instead of 1 light, you do 2. Number 3, 7. According to the Kabbalah, I know that one of my rabbis, Rav Nisim Abadi in Ramat Shlomo in Israel, Lava Shalom, he used to light 7. I watched him do it myself. Some even light 10, and then 1 for every child that is born in the house, plus the 2. So again, actually it wouldn't be the full members of the household, it's for every child that is. Let's take a look at the sources that he brings down here. He brings down here 14. The Shlach HaKadosh writes that there is a custom to light 7 candles in remembrance of the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash. So that's the reason, which had 7 lights. The custom is also brought in the Be'er Hetev in the name of the Arizal in 263-2, who states that this is done corresponding to the 7 days of the week. So 7 keneged the 7 days, or the 7 kanim. The Ben Ish Hai in Noach 2-11 brings down to state that the number of candles correspond to the number of aliyot on Shabbat. So that's very interesting. The Magen Abraham and Mishnah Berurah 263-10 state that this number corresponds to the 10 commandments. The Yafel Alev says that the number corresponds to the 10 menorahs that Shlomo HaMelech made in the Beit HaMikdash. And you can also see in Halakha B'Rabah, volume 15, page 166, who mentions the other customs of lighting even greater number of candles. So you have 5 different opinions of how many candles to light on Shabbat. Let's continue. On a week where one is unable to light 2 candles, one should light at least 1. Even though he normally lights 2, 1 is completely good in kasher. If one usually lights with oil and does not have enough oil for all of the candles that will be lit to last through that Shabbat meal, then one should preferably light less candles and instead use more oil per wick in order the light should last throughout the Shabbat meal. You got it, Ezra? I'll say it again. If usually one lights with oil and does not have enough oil for all the candles that will be lit to last throughout the Shabbat meal, meaning if you wanted the candles to be lit while you're eating so you could see the light, then one should preferably light less candles and instead use more oil per wick in order the light should last throughout the Shabbat. Let's say he lights 7, but if he lights the 7, it'll go out in 20 minutes or half an hour and it won't be there by the time he gets home from shul. So instead, in that situation, light 2 or even 1 to make sure that it will actually be lit throughout the meal that you're eating. A woman who is accustomed to lighting a certain number of candles every year Shabbat may not retract her custom without legitimate reason and performing Hatarat Nedarim. Let's say she lights 7 every single week and suddenly she wants to go back down to 2. Therefore, if a woman wants to begin to light more candles than she's required, should state that she's only doing so Beli Neder. Her kavanah, and she should say, is Beli Neder. If a woman is in a situation that she only has 2 candles, let's say she visited someone for Shabbat, she went to her in-laws or family, or she's in a hotel, she's accustomed to lighting more than 2 candles, she's permitted to only light 2 candles for that week, since she's only doing so on a one-time basis, and no Hatarat Nedarim is required. Hatarat Nedarim is only required if you're changing permanently, indefinitely. If it's just on a temporary basis because of a situation, or a lack of resources, then that would be different. That's not you don't have that because she's going to go right back to doing it in the following week. A woman who is married to a man who has a differing custom than her regarding the number of candles that one should light must abide by her husband's custom. Let's say the guy lit 7, his mom lit 7, his family lit 7, she at home did only 2. She has to follow her husband's custom. She follows that and not her parents'. If she wants to begin to light more than her husband's custom, then she must ask her husband for permission to do so. She can't just go around and taking the halacha into her own hands. A widowed man or woman should continue lighting the same number of candles as when the deceased spouse was alive. So, and he brings that down from halacha berura, and this is also the case for a divorcee. So if let's say that when they're married, she would light 7, and let's say she passed away, the spouse or he, then they would continue lighting exactly the same in order to keep that custom in place. And we'll end it here. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amin v'amin.